Right, this is episode 4. We've reached episode 4 of Middle Kingdom Minds. Me and Raz are back again. And even though, like, I'm obviously just a liar, because I keep saying at the beginning of all these episodes, like, you know, we won't always have guests, right? Sometimes it'll just be a two-man show. But then I do, for some reason, still think every time, like, because it's like the novelty, getting a different voice in. You always want to hear some different ideas, you know, see how things are going. So we've got another guest. It's another guest. If anyone remembers, we had this guest on Narrative Wake last year sometime. I forget when. I would guess like middle of the year or something. And it's FrVonLettow, who you might know if you're from the Spanish community. But one of the reasons why I want to have him on this show is because the reason I had you on Narrative Wake is because it is so hard to find Westerners who really watch the LPL. Not just like, you know, they watch if RNG plays IG or something. Because the problem is you can tell the people who do that, because as soon as they start to try and give any like in-depth analytical content, it just falls flat. Like if you watch the league, you know that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, you know. It's like if some Westerner now is talking about like EDG as though they're a top team in the LPL. It's like they're not at all. Like you must not watch the LPL if you think that. So FrVonLettow here actually is legit. He's from the same kind of cloth as Raz here, from the old school. People who actually, even when they weren't paid, chose to watch the LPL. That's rare. Yes. That's rare. I appreciate that, FrVonLettow, that you watch it because you enjoy the league, right? You don't just watch it because it's your job, right?
Yeah, and it actually makes sense because I actually remember my first piece in esports, or well, one of my first pieces in esports in Spanish, that it was about Flandre using a smite with Chivana.
Right, yes.
So it was that remind me like that last week, because I saw that post in Reddit with Clenning, with Frostmancy, and I thought, okay, that's a thing Flandre will do. And I will never forget that if that piece didn't make me push into an analytical content in a sense. So yeah, I think that I will say that I started for free, like looking at it as a hobby, but with time came on, I started rating more, and yeah, I make some profit, but not too much.
That's actually crazy. That's actually insanity. Because I have seen you quite a bit, content you push, or just you know, on Twitter a lot. For me, literally the thing that got like watching like LPL and all esports is one point, but like my first written real content was like about Snake and Flandre when they promoted into the league. Yes. It was like, my God, he like plays Fizz top, like LeBlanc top lane, like with Static Shiv. It was like such a cool thing to watch, and it was really the passion that pushed me into it. So it's really funny that we started out basically the same way.
The sad thing is, like, obviously people know I have been something of like an aficionado of top laners for most of the League of Legends, but the sad thing is Flandre is one of the first like modern LPL players that I liked for similar reasons when they came up, and that was like a team where, if anyone remembers, if there was ever a team from China needed to go to Worlds, it was that Snake Esports team the first year they had it, because they actually played like a legit style. Like, I know everyone back then had ridiculous caricature version of the LPL. Like, you know, they basically thought like every single team was like Season 3 OMG on steroids, just 24/7 tower diving, which is like, that was never the case. Like, that was mainly bad teams who did that, or OMG who did it. And actually, by the way, they didn't just do that. Like, they were very good at setting up those dives. But anyway, when people thought that way, that Snake team was legit as fuck, because remember that was the team that like you went to after he'd finished his time in EDG because he got displaced by Pawn. So like, what a great team that was. It was like what a great balance they had. They had a carry top lane or something at the time you hadn't seen in the LPL since literally like IG and fucking PDD. So like, this would have been such a great team to see at Worlds. But as usual in the LPL, it's the same every year if you notice. There's always like a really sick team that everyone wants to see at Worlds. Chaogu Reapers, you know, we can go back and we can pick all these teams. And then what always happens is that gauntlet just always wrecks whoever that team is. They always get their hearts broken. And if you're a fan of the LPL, you're like, why does this random team just made it at the end? Why?
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, out of all of the reasons...
The gauntlet's is a dream killer in LPL, isn't it?
It's insane. Like, out of all of the regions, you look at the LPL and everyone's just jaded by playoff time. Like, best of 5 and Gauntlet, you're like, this team looks good. They're new. But can they do it in a best of 5? I have to wait. Because, like, all the teams, like, I remember, like, the Dandy, Vici.
Yeah. That sounded like you were trying to do, like, Obama talking about the LPL then. Those teams good. They're very good. They got a good macro. Yeah. They got players from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. They have the best, the coaching staff. This team is ready to go. And then they get out there and they get blazed by like a WE or EDG. Like, no matter who, it just makes me sad at the end.
No, it's wild, isn't it? Like it's funny because the irony is in the West, like the most famous example obviously is like Cloud9's won every single one of those gauntlets. So it's actually very obvious in the West who's going to make it every time. Like usually it is the better teams, but sadly the LPL has had, like I wouldn't even say it's bad teams, it's just that they always tend to be a clusterfuck when it gets to that gauntlet. Like anyone can win that motherfucker. Okay, right, let's start. Because here's the thing, FrVonLettow. At the moment, every time someone who doesn't watch the LPL glances over, they are actually going to be surprised this season because, first of all, obviously, some Westerners won't know some of the teams that have upgraded, like Sunning and Top are really dangerous now. But beyond that, the team that will probably shock everyone, I referenced the Xiaogu Rupas earlier, right? And a player I also have wanted to see at Worlds for so many years now is obviously Doinby. It's like, how, like people don't seem to realise this guy has been like an MVP of the league and we haven't seen him at Worlds. It's not like it's just some side player, you know. And every team he plays for becomes like legitimately top tier in LPL. It's ridiculous. Every team he plays for. So he's done it again. FunPlus Phoenix is literally #1 in the LPL. They are the only undefeated team in the LPL because remember IG lost that game to Jingdong Gaming. So this is a team, we've gone through the lineup already, Raz, but the fact this team is #1 in the league, what do you think of this?
I think that it's a deja vu for me. Like, remember that time in, I think it's August 2017, when there was a team that came from the LSPL, the only one team that came from the LSPL, and they went 4-1 in the first like weeks of the league, and then they went 4-9 or something like that, and they then did the last of their group. Like, yes. I don't know this. I don't think this team is that team. Obviously, I think this team was really like they have many synergies, but I had that deja vu, so I tried to like go deeper on this team, and I found like for me this team, the definition of this team is like that. All say that it's better to have an army of ships led by a lion than an army of lion led by ships, because I see these teams like every single player is like good, but I never thought of them like being geniuses, like being smart as. It's like I know they have experience. Like for example, the bottling has a lot of experience together, and I know that Gimgun has been for a long time in the league. But I always thought like Gimgun being like a kind of tool that you have to use. Like if you don't use it, like he tries to think those things, but they don't make sense. So for me, Doinby is that guy that uses the tool. Like maybe he's the only guy that could use those four tools. Maybe there's no other player in the league that could do that. But it's not like Doinby is the best player for this team. It's like more like Doinby is the best leader for this team. Like the style of Doinby, for example, I double checked before this show, and I checked that Soas is the player who in the history of League of Legends has played most champions, and Doinby is not even close. Like Doinby hasn't played so many champions. It's the thing that he plays so concrete champions so well and in simple strategies, and he like executes those champions really, really well. So in this team, I see many things, structure. I see many things that are really good. Like for example, how they play around Baron. It's really smart how they play around Baron, but it's like so concrete that in the long term, I think they will not be done gaming, but they won't be a good team overall. Like when I mean a good team, I mean like a top tier team, obviously not a bottom tier team. So I think FunPlus Phoenix, from what I heard from other analysts, is like a bit too overhyped because of the results. They are not a bad team, but they are like a short-term result team because of how they play. They can make into players, they can do a good performance, but I don't think they are going to be a top team in the long run.
Yeah, I think we're in alignment in the sense that the two issues, or at least the same issue that I had with FunPlus Phoenix the last season, and for Doinby and all seasons, just vision control being priority. I know that the top teams that always end up making it out have always had top tier vision control around Baron objectives, Dragon objectives. Currently, that's something that teams are really building up. And what we saw out of Sunning in FPX series, just as we went into Chinese New Year's, was that Sunning were very close to being able to take them down, and they didn't even have Maple at top tier condition, and they had no hacker. So I felt like Sunning already proved that if they were like not only once they come back together, but put in some weeks, and they would be able to take down FPX. That being said, you're right, man. I actually don't know who would be able to take Doinby's spot on this team and come out with the same results, because the leadership was key. Like for him to be able to rally the team, like set timers a lot of the times, and even just talking about like his play style. Because if I'm ever to like compare a player to Doinby, a lot of people would try and reach and say, what about GBM? Because like, oh, you know, like different styles and everything. But GBM makes the compositions harder to play based off of his champion pool. Meanwhile, Doumbé's champion pools are always very simple, like straightforward. Literally, Kled is the best example of that. And if you look to his, because he's very straightforward in what he plays, he streams a lot, and you can just look at his OPGG. Like, he just spams champions if he wants to learn it. Like, when he played Yasuo, is because you look at his OPGG, he had like 10 or 20 Yasuo games in a row before he was actually willing to play.
Right, what about this then? So what the result that put FunPlus Phoenix at the top of the league obviously was the marquee matchup against Sunning, another team that people, you know, are very hyped about, potentially themselves going to challenge for the top spot. What do you think of this series?
To be honest, like I've heard some praise, I've read some praise about that series, but I think it was a weird series overall. Like, not only because of the situation that Maple couldn't play all the series and he was sick, or no, not only about that, but I saw a series that it was like a clash in styles without a style. Like, FunPlus Phoenix had a style, but Sunning is still developing a style. They are like so focused on the meta. They are playing like a lot of champions that are currently priority in the meta. For example, SMLC is a really good Ezreal. He has played a lot of it. Like Xiao has played 7 times Urgot, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like there's one team that has this type of style that is led by Doumbé, who clashes with a potential better team, but with no style and with some kind of context that damages them. So I honestly think that it was a crazy and really entertaining series, but not like a definite series to value the level of both teams. Even FunPlus Phoenix, because they didn't face a team that they couldn't apply their style properly. They have to adapt to that, the strength of the laners of Sunning, especially Xiao. And I think Hacker has been playing insanely well with constant guns, a style like Ning. But in the long run, as I say, like Sunning Gaming, as Raz said, would have won that series overall. Like they lost it because it was like really weird. I think one of the games was the longest in this season, maybe more than 45 minutes for sure. This season,
the third game was like 50 minutes or 49 or something. Yeah,
something like that, something crazy. So I, to be honest, I will not make any conclusion directly from the series, but I will make the conclusion that FunPlus Phoenix has a really direct style that in the long term could be countered, and Sunning Gaming, on the other hand, has a really good lineup, but they have some issues like in terms of synergy, and they have to fix them. And also that the bot lane played so well, like SMLC and Sword Art played a really good series.
By the way, speaking of the bot lane, if you enjoy watching broken champions, go and watch game 2 of this series, where LWX has, I think it was something like, wasn't it like 17 or 18 kills on Kai'Sa? Like, that just shows you how utterly broken that champion is when it's like completely out of control. Like, you know, when it has loads of kills, the Kai'Sa, it's like, it's an AD carry that you can't even engage on because it's just like flashing around all over the place. It's so cancer, isn't it?
It's actually ridiculous whenever you see a good Kai'Sa play and also just a composition that can protect her, because it's like, oh, we finally dove into the back line, and then it's literally now it's the front line.
Exactly, yeah. It's busted as hell.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed about this series and overall the LPL, there's no frontline anymore. Like, League of Legends is not played with frontline and backline in LPL. It's played more like flanks and ADCs that can jump forever, and they can like go to the backline of the enemy team and with some kind of like tool, like for example a Tam Kench or something like that, they can stand for longer. So they have disrupted. I don't know if it's only for this meta. I don't know if with the new patches it's going to change. But actually, like, it's so hard to value team fighting from teams because the classic values that you will apply to those teams don't matter anymore. So, like, in those series is the perfect series to see that because, as you said, like, there's a guys jumping around all the time.
Yeah.
Since, as you mentioned, as you mentioned, right, obviously the Hacker did not play the jungler of Sunning, and clearly if you have a super team and you have someone as highly rated as him, like it doesn't really feel as legit a result. So Sunning, this is the only series they themselves have lost, right? You were a bit critical of them there in terms of the style FrVonLettow. Do you actually think that Sunning can be an LPL champion? What do you think of them as a squad, going forwards?
Yeah, in terms of potential, for sure, like there's no doubt about it. Like, I don't see a team. Actually, no. Invictus Gaming is the only team, because I think that TOP has like some differences between levels in individual levels within the team, even though they are really good overall. But Sunning Gaming has overall like a solid lineup that can compete for the title. But as I said, like there's a long time, there's a long career to develop their style. For example, IG has like 1.5 years of advantages from them. Like they have to change a lot. And what I saw in these first weeks is not like developed style at all. Like the only thing that I saw is some synergy between Hacker and Chaval. That they came from the same like environment, and something with Maple and Hacker also. And it was strange because they don't share the same style, but they have some synergy right now. But for example, the bot lane and the rest of the team is completely disoriented. I have seen team fights from Sunning that it was trying to do something at SMLC and then trying to run behind him, Swartar, to protect him. And the other side of the team was flanking. And overall, they lose so many times that they shouldn't lose because they don't have a synergy. But I think they will develop it because it's only a matter of time. They have no communication issues, I think. There's no Korean that cannot speak Chinese here. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know. I think they will develop it, but because they have the talent, the experience overall. But right now, it's not like a team that I will have. Like right now, if I have to say it, it's not a top 1 to top 2 team, but they should be in the long run.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts, Raz?
I would say right now, top 2 would be IG and probably FPX for simplicity. But if it comes down to playoff time, I would think that it would come down to RNG versus Sunning. I would agree with that. I think it really just depends on what RNG looks like once Uzi comes back in. But oftentimes, I don't think the changes that RNG has had would push them out of a final seeding. So for me, it would be really difficult for Sunning. I would often look towards another IG RNG just because of just the outright synergies that they consistently have. And say a real question mark would be at about like how Amazing J would come in for the team. So I agree. I think that Sunning are looking very strong. And the fact that they are playing standard so well, specifically how Xiao Al is just basically molded into this lineup, has been really surprising for me. Because when you have a new bottom lane or like a new mid lane, being able to consistently come in for team fights or TP well enough is and right from week 1 too. I think it's a really good tell of how strong he is as an individual.
Right. If someone doesn't watch LPL FrVonLettow and they ask, who is this player SMLZ? They don't know him, right? They've heard some hype about him. Do you actually, in your mind, can you place like where would he be in terms of like all AD carries in the world? Is he legitimately someone you'd put up with, like, you know, the LCK AD carries, for example, Deft and Viper and Teddy? Is he at this level for you?
Well, first I will make an analogy that it's really simple to understand for European and maybe Americans too if they watch the LCS. SMLC for me is for China what Forgiven has been all the time for Europe. Like he is the guy that no one outside of the region knows. Obviously America just because Western is like unique in a sense. Sure. But Chinese people, they only remember from that SK game that went to wars, I think. I'm not sure. No, it was H2K, yeah. But overall, it's like a guy that is so insanely good individually, but they haven't, like, there's no respect in terms of like international respect. He's never rated between the best ADCs in the world. And he's actually one of them. As for Gimina, it will be in the peak, obviously not right now. So I will say that SMLC can compete for sure. He was rated not only by people who watch the league, also by the players, which is immense, because when a player from Korea rates this guy from solo queue and he is playing in another league, that means a lot. And at the same time, SMLC has something that not so many Chinese ADCs have, like iBoy, Jekilov, etc. That's so consistent. Like he plays always good. And Ezreal is one of his like he's one of his best picks because of that, because Ezreal is a champion that you have to be consistent. Like if you are not consistent output with damage output, you will fall off. And SMLC is so with Ezreal because of that. And at the same time, in an international event, I don't think he will choke or he will feel under pressure. Like I feel like he will be a really good player. So I will say yes, top 5 in the world. Maybe top 2 is a bit too much, but top 5 for sure, I think, right now.
Okay.
I've already said that I think he's the best player at the moment to not make it to Worlds. Like, Score has already made it there, and I think that SMLZ is definitely a player that should be there. He's the most locked-in player I've ever seen. Doesn't matter what stage he's on, that he's just like fully focused. So I think this is the team that he should be able to make it to Worlds with, no matter what. If they don't make it, that's a disappointment. That's just, they have top players in every position of top 3 in the LPL. So like, that'd be surprising for me.
Yeah. I like the characterization though, like it's because obviously he's also a very skilled player, but yeah, the consistency of his play is very impressive because like if anyone's seen the LPL the last few years, it is clear that a lot of AD carries did like basically idolize Uzi because if you look at the newer generation of the next ones, iBoy, Jackie Love, these guys just want to be Uzi. So as a result, unfortunately, they do go too ham. They do go like, and that makes you super erratic, you know, whereas like I want to see, I mean, it's funny that obviously SMLZ was supposed to be the sort of successor to Wei Zhao because I want to see that type of AD carry. I like the AD carries that like Name, Wei Zhao. It's like they just put out a consistent performance. You know exactly what champion they're going to play, how they're going to play, where the win conditions are. And you can rely on that guy because it's like, funny enough, this is actually one of these things that... Right, you know when someone who's viewed as like being silly, so like a player like Doublelift's a good example, or in this particular case, Loco Doco, right, is someone where, sure, it's very easy for people to meme on him and think like, oh, you know, what does he know about the game or whatever. But he's a guy who comes up with some very insightful comments sometimes, and he once made a comment, right, where he was explaining like why he criticizes Doublelift, and he said that in these particular scenarios, he'd seen like scenarios in fights where Doublelift kept dying in team fights too easily, like he basically like, you know, mispositioned or was too aggressive with positioning and let himself get killed by the enemy or like locked up and succeeding killed. And Loco's point was, your job as an AD carry, if you are like a star AD carry, is your team has invested all of these resources in you the whole game long. And they've done that naturally with an AD carry so that in the team fight, you can win us the game. You're very powerful. So he said at that point in time, you can't play it as though it's like a solo queue game. And it's like, oh, we're all just 5 players and hey, we're all just doing whatever we want in the team fight. It's like at that point in time, you actually have to think as the AD carry, like, how can I be responsible with all the gold that's been invested in me? Because if I die easily, it's like that. It's like if you think of the gold lead, if you know the gold lead, it suggests if you have a gold lead that you're going to win the game, right? Well, obviously, if I've put all my gold into the AD carry and he just gets deleted in a team fight, well, doesn't matter if I have a gold lead now. Actually, the game says I should lose. Like, it's quite logical. So there's not. I have to say, even though there's a lot of great AD carry players mechanically in the LPL, there's just not a lot of players in the whole world who play the position super well in that sense.
Yeah, and our top 80 carries are also very emotional in the same sense that they don't often think about keeping themselves alive in the fight. LWX, iBoy, and Jackie Love are like 380 carries that are on the top of the league at the moment that are all very gun shy. So like, I know, not gun shy, literally who want to be able to flash into a fight. Yes, gung ho. So it's insane to be able to have that attribute, and why I compare him so heavily to Uzi. Now that Uzi's going to be coming back in, I really want to see an FPX RNG series, just because what's it called? Suning an RNG series. That would be really sick to see from that perspective. That's why I really loved Rogue Warriors versus RNG last time around, because wherever he ends up going, just how the team fights end up faring out always come out consistently. That you will always know that Uzi and SMLZ will come into a team fight completely prepared for it, perfect CS, team fight ready, and it's just about how the protection ends up going that ends up picking it up. I will remember like last year when Uzi was on the Vayne pick, and it was essentially Vayne versus Jhin, and SMLZ had won out the team fight of the first half of it, but at the second half, Uzi comes up really sick. So like that's always a matchup I really respect, because you know you're going to get something beautiful in team fights.
Yeah, and I would say that there is a guy right now in the LPL that is following the style of SMLZ. There's only one ADC, maybe 2 if you can, a bit Mystic, but not so much. Oh, well, yeah. Mystic is not following. Mystic was previously, but do you understand me?
Sure.
I will say that he's in a really bad team. He's shown to be the best in that team, and I didn't know him before. Maybe Raz from LDL now, and it's the ADC of Snake, Asura. Like he played so many good games with Israel, with a style really close to what SMLC does. And I think that maybe not right now, but in the future, it could maybe more players like Asura could appear. So maybe things are changing in a way, because the way of playing of Invictus game, for example, will influence a lot of the future players, and it's not the way traditionally RNG played. So maybe SMLC could do the same. Like if they win this year, for example, like maybe summer, maybe spring, or even if they go to Wars, it could happen that maybe more players like SMLC appear, because Wei Xiao is long way back, and you cannot rely to Wei Xiao.
Yes, like I would make, you know, there's that joke they always make, Raz, in like the NBA, where they're like, you know, like when the Celtics are bad, you say like, hey, Larry Bird isn't walking through that door. Like the problem is, Wei Xiao could be walking through the door, but just as a coach. He's not coming back as a player. So
he's actually a coach in Team WF, and I'm not wrong. So
yeah, indeed. Actually, why don't we talk about WD actually? Because obviously they beat EDG this week, and it wasn't this week. It was a couple of weeks before the Chinese New Year, basically.
Yeah.
And this is a team where, I mean, we discussed it, me and Raz. Like they started out the split very weird because they tried all those different players, and they actually have been subbing in. Like you see, they sub in the jungler a bunch of times. What do you think of WE, FrVonLettow? Are they actually going to be a team that can contend in the playoffs?
Well, if you see the series against EDG, like I saw that the Bane from Mystic was key, and at the same time I saw like that series was really well planned, but it wasn't like not a way to value in the long run Team WE. Like I think that they prepare so well for that series, but I didn't see like some, as I said with FunPlus Phoenix, I didn't see like a kind of style that they can develop in the future. At the same time, they have insane talent in some positions, like Mystic is really good, she is really good. I think that Post, the top laner, has improved, at least from what I saw. Like with Urgot, he has played really well. But to be honest, I don't trust Team W at all. Like I will never trust that. Like the same with BT Gaming in the past, the same with when they had Loom, for example, in Good Strike, the same with Victory 5. I will never trust a team that they haven't changed the core issues, like core players, core stuff, whatever, and they didn't like show progress over time. Like for example, Team W, if you remember back in the day when they played that team from Katowice, they had the spirit there. They went really, really bad in the LPL. They had the good performance in the EM Katowice, and then they improved. But they improved slower in the LPL. They reached to the point that it was the 957. It was that iteration that won the LPL. But now it's not like they came back to the bot position and they are improving slowly. They are like making like spikes. And those spikes are not good for a team that wants to develop something. Like, for example, imagine they develop around POS. Those spikes are not good for POS because he will not develop to different contexts or to a specific style in TMW. So if they don't change some core issues, like some players, it doesn't matter if they are good. It's like a context of how do you structure a team. If they don't change that, I will not trust Team W at all. For example, there's a team that I will trust and no one is trusting right now, and it's BT Gaming because they did actually that. So I will see, but not trusting to the point that they can compete to playoffs, but to the long term that they can be a good team in the long term. So I don't trust Team W at all.
Yeah, my statement I remember going into the season was I think that like the WE that we saw last year, we won't see that type of WE. They will win games simply because they are playing the same roster. We're going to see Mystic, hopefully, like unless they prove me wrong, right? But why would they ever sub out Mystic is my question. Like it should always be Mystic and CA, and as long as they have those caliber players playing in the lineup, they would be a team that I would have reaching mid-tier. But to your point, right now they seem like a Victory 5. They seem like an FPX of last season. They seem like a team that is so focused on just having good players that they've lost the identity of being a team because they don't have a link on the map anymore. They don't have Gandhi at his peak in 2017. They don't have an experienced player because even if Pepper was staying on, I think that'd be sick, right? I think that you could grow with somebody that had a style that you prefer playing. Mystic preferred playing with Pepper's style. Now you bring in Magic. He changes his name, so I remember him from the LODL. But Magic is a player that currently doesn't have a style. He listens and he follows. He's a follower of CA, and you think that would be an okay thing as long as they play through CA. But at the moment they switch up that too frequently. And I think playing a style that's backing CA would be fine if CA was playing initially and you didn't play on week 1. And also, I think that there are so many great mid laners, mid lane talent right now that lead teams. Like Rookie leads IG is easy. Knight leads TOP, and the team as a whole is incredibly strong. And if we go to do what's it called? Like, just there are so many squads that just have like great leadership through the mid lane, and we haven't talked about them in this season, this episode, but Kuro leading Billy.
Yeah.
Like, there are already so many phenomenal mid laners that are leading pretty good talented teams that at the moment that I don't think that's a unique thing for WE, and it won't put them over the hump of, like, let's say if they make it to the playoffs, which would be a surprise to me, it will be still fighting for 8th place.
Right, being as in the next week they play against FPX, WE plays FPX. Obviously, standings wise, they're very separate at the moment. Does WE have the players or the style to be able to get the upset here?
The thing is, like, if they play like they played against EDG, they could win because they actually like prepared that series. Like, we talked about FPS having a proper style, like a direct style, easy to focus. For example, the way they play Teamface is like flanking with Doinby, and I don't remember right now the number of the top lane, Gingun. But the way they play Baron is really concrete. Like, they play Baron in a way that they focus around the Baron Nashor, and they always go out of the Baron Nashor when they see someone. It doesn't matter who it is, they just engage. So it's really concrete, it's really easy to see. So Team WE showed against the EDG that if you play in a way that is easy to analyze, they could win. Okay, yes, but at the same time, I don't expect them to win because FunPlus Phoenix is in this honeymoon, and Team WE is maybe not the team to destroy that honeymoon. I mean, they are a team that has the talent to win. For example, I see Shige maybe winning against Doinby, even though Doinby is, for me, a better player right now. I could see having them a lead in the bot lane, even though they have, like, because the enemy team is consistent, but I don't see like Crisp and LWX being like a top tier bot lane in a sense. So I see them winning in a way, but it's like, who cares? Like, if FunPlus Phoenix in the long run is not the top tier team, losing against Team WE won't change anything. If they are a top tier team, losing against Team WE won't change anything because they don't have to win Team WE specifically. Sure. It's more like a boost morale, like a boost morale win for Team WE because they won against EDG, now won against FunPlus Phoenix. So yes, maybe they can win because, you know, it's only a series in the regular phase. But at the same time, I don't expect them to do it. And if they win, it's because they prepare something concrete as they did against EDG.
Even with the preparations that they had versus EDG, I thought that EDG played surprisingly like poorly individually.
They have been doing all the time.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Like in game 1, it was. I think Ray as an individual had made way too many core mistakes, especially like the blast plant mistake that he made when he had full. Like, he knew that they were doing Rift Trail, but he just got caught out in doing so. Once again, iBoy. Like, there are so many like people just getting caught out individually early on in the game that gives WE a heads up, and then when they go into game 2, Team WE had such a massive lead early, and then they played the slowest burner of a game I've ever seen a team with an early lead play in the LPL. So I think at the moment, even if they play their best with the lineup that they have versus FPX, I expect FPX to just smash the series.
I will say something because I don't expect them to smash in any situation. Because what I say smash is what Top did to Oh My God and to LGD. Like, that's a smashing, like 20 minutes, like straight from the laning phase. But FPS is not a team to do like FPX is more like, okay, we have this lead. What do we, like, for example, using mid prior to go to the top lane? So whatever you get, they did. And then consequently structure decisions to win the game. I don't see FPX like smashing. Like, which lane would smash? Maybe Gingun against a really bad top laner, but I saw some like quality in post, so I don't expect post to be smashed. I saw the same like to a teammate, to a friend. I said the same about Ale, and he was smashed, so maybe I'm wrong. But to be honest, I don't see FunPlus when he's smashing in the concrete say of the war. But they can.
I guess we're talking about degrees. For me, I think the closest we'll get to is how FPX ended up playing up against JD initially, where it was Tien, always playing through, or at least trying to take down Levi and Flawless, that I felt like those two junglers were constantly tracked. And I think it's going to be the same issue because Magic at the moment, it just doesn't seem like he needs a lot more time and support that he's currently having.
Yeah. Right, since you referenced them earlier, Vici is not a team, unsurprisingly, FrVonLettow, that we talk about much on this show because you look at the lineup, you know, coming into the split, no one thought they were going to be good. Everyone's kind of written Vici off from years ago because they don't have any of the big star players that they at least made them famous for the last few years. You referenced earlier that actually it's a team kind of you're surprised by, right? What do you like about Vici Gaming?
It's like, how can I explain it? When I said that it was a team that they smashed everything that they did previously, it was like Vici Gaming for 4 years, since the times of Dandy and Mata, they were trying so hard to get like high Korean players and try to develop some kind of synergy. It didn't work anytime. They were the only team to go to the LDL in that series against Dan Gaming. And they just changed everything. Like, it remembers me a lot to what Team WE did after the EM Katowice thing. So, well, like the weeks before. So I see BT Gaming having like 2 players that are really good. Like, well, one is insane. Like, Southwind is absolutely insane. I have seen so many crazy engages I have not seen in many European players, like the best supports in Europe. And there's not so many talent in comparison to other positions in terms of supports. And I also saw like Chelsea having a style. Like, BT Gaming is not a random team in the same way they play. They have a really structured way of playing. Either they play with Chelsea doing a split pushing with Jax, for example, or they play around placing vision, not denying vision, they are bad at that, but they can place around Nashor and doing the same kind of style of FPX, like try to engage, but never taking 50-50s. So they have like some kind of a style, right? And when you see a team with good prospects, in a sense, they have a style, and at the same time they are rebuilding anything, I will trust. Like, what's the worst position they can be? Like, if they are the last position, for example, they won't, but they could be. There's nothing wrong about that because they are trying new players, they are developing their style. Maybe in the future, like in the long term, it's a bad thing. But right now, they are playing a structure in a bad tier team. They have talent. They have changed anything, so I will try to trust on them. Maybe it's a wrong guess, and then I jinx them. The only thing that I see really, really bad from them is when they are behind, they are really behind. And just to say a number, they have played 3 series. They have won 1 and lost 2. But if you see the matches, one it was against Sunning Gaming. The other, I don't remember who they lost. I think it's OMG or something like that. Not a good team.
EDG.
EDG, not a good team. But at the same time, they were like really contested series, like 3 of them. The one they won, and the 2 they lost. And it was like series they lost mostly because of innocent decisions, like not bad decisions, like they have no experience at all. So I will try. Like, I trust. Honestly, I really trust on this team.
Yeah, surprisingly, this could have been a team that coming into this season could have been 3-0, like with how close these series have gone.
Yeah.
And even in the last one where they ended up taking SDG by game 3, I was casting that game and I felt like SDG should have easily won that one in a game 3 setting. But like, it's insane how the growth you're starting to see it, because for a while there it was just about Puff and Southwind, and then it's starting, you see Chalizi starting to play lanes out very well. So his laning phase got improved from the first week, and I think it was more so just like nervousness. If I talk to the team, that'd probably be what they say. Puff really had to be the member that needed to get better, or Jay in particular. I mean, Jay, their mid laner, needed to actually improve during the series, and I thought that his final game was much better out of it. So I think that the team themselves, it's interesting that they have so much faith in the squad, because after they won NISO, which is not that big of a third-party tournament, there was NEST, which is pretty big because a lot of good teams went on that one. NISO, that was basically like not even shown to the like, I had to dig hard to find that tournament. It was incredibly like not a lot of eyes were on it. But this was the squad that they shored up and ended up winning that tournament with, and so they had a lot of faith in the individual players. I was shocked that we didn't see Audi play up until this point, but with how well Chalice is starting to come out in the top lane, I think that's actually good. They already had the pre-existing synergy that they had in the in off season, and of course the individuals are starting to get better. That isn't just Puff and Southwind. So I think this team should start, like, if I'm looking ahead, Like, they're not going to win their next series back RNG. That one's just not going to happen unless people get shot. Yeah, it's not even close. But like Victory 5 is suddenly a real question. Victory 5 and Snake are the next 2 series after that one. And with how Vici has been playing, I think I'm not going to say they'll win versus Victory 5 because I think that the last time we saw V5, that's a style that they're starting to play around Jinu a little bit more. But I think versus Snake, that'll happen.
Well, about Victory 5, maybe introduce this topic because it's really interesting to me. Victory 5 is the inverse of Vici in a sense that they are like when you say that a team has potential, you say, okay, they can improve over time. For me, Victory 5 has inverse potential. Like over time, they should be worse for many things. Like they have so many experienced players, they are really good.
Yeah.
Like for the only prospect I can see in this team is Gino, the top laner. He played at Rim and really, really amazing, but he has been playing that in LGD last year. So I see they can have a prospect, but overall, I don't see like potential in any other players. Like they are good right now, but if time passes, they won't be better, and other teams can improve. So maybe only in synergy in time. So this will be a team that would just say, okay, this team won't win the league, maybe not even make playoffs, but they will win key games to good teams that it will fuck everything up. Like it will make the ladder. This is the team that its only purpose is to make people not happy. Like for sure.
It's a spoiler. That's what we call it. Like that's a spoiler of the people's time, right? It's like playing New Jungle.
Exactly. Well, I'm not sure about that, but to be honest, there's a team in Spain that plays like that in a way. But what I say is that Victory 5 against BT Gaming, for example, the way they encounter, like the moment they encounter, maybe the Victory 5 can win. But in the long run, for example, I will never see, like in summer, if they continue like this, Victory 5 winning against BT Gaming, actually. Like I would say...
The last series for me is actually the one that really changed my mind, because for this team, I like initially starting out the series, I agree with you. This season, I agree with you because all of these players on different teams and systems had failed because the system there was no team play involved in that. So Ben4 and Pepper were like from previous teams that had like broken systems. Jinu, LGD, I mean Y4 and Jinu, like picture perfect previous teams that had broken systems that had like great players. Korn is probably their best player in terms of like when we saw him on TOP, it was because of his incredible play. But like how for me, a major issue is like consistency. Like did he have it for that one split? Can he continue to do that? I was very hesitant to be able to make that point because like Aurelia was a mainstay for him and Aurelia was a mainstay for everybody. She was just a broken champion at the time. So I think the two things that really got me second guessing that opinion was they're playing Lay a lot more than Road. And I think that is a big plus if you want to be able to find consistency, is having a member on that team that can give very direct shot calling that isn't like balls to the walls at the time. Like Road gets frustrated, he makes a play. That's his ultimate motive. Like, all right, we're not doing anything, I'm gonna do something, rather than being confident enough to play patiently at times. And I thought the previous series that we saw when Jinu was playing the Riven and we were seeing pretty crazy picks going versus OMG, but they were very well orchestrated picks around like a Galio composition consistently, and they would always like play through a system topside. And I know that Doggate, their head coach, coming in from the LMS, had like some,
or something like that.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that I would respect, and I think that if their coaching staff can embed a lot of a strong enough system that you can see something different that we're starting to see out of Jinu and specifically Ben4 that's been playing a lot of these games recently, then I'm like, okay, like I'm open. I'm an open person because these players have had like highlight moments in their careers, but they can't just be highlight players because that just goes to your same point. Like then they'll just fuck it up for everyone. The Vici gaming that you want to see in a best of 5 won't get that chance. So I really do believe that this team is starting to look better. I'm starting to have faith that they're a team that can grow rather than be that team like EDG right now. That's like, well, we don't know which team we're getting in every series because they're just like randomly look to fight.
Well, I will disagree, but I will point out in favor of you that Alistar's, Lay's Alistar story was so good, like that series. I have to point that out because it's true. And just in overall, I will repeat my words, but I will say that I can't agree because I don't see potential. Like only Gino and maybe Adit Ben4. But for sure, this season they could perform well. But not, for example, Summer. I don't think if they don't change any position that they will be a strong team overall.
Okay, like a team that you referred to earlier, actually, funnily enough, when you were talking about like experienced mid laners, is in a team also we haven't discussed that much here, Raz, which is Billy.
Yeah.
So FrVonLettow, what do you think of this team? Because this is a team that's trying to make some Koreans work, and they've got a big name Korean, and it's kind of an interesting mix of players.
I love this team, but not for a rational. Like the thing about this team is that they have ATT, the ex MVP top laner. He's been playing Poppy. And he's been playing Pop in a way that it's like the only front lane, because Meteor, he was called Meteor. I don't know why he changed that, but Meteor, he's been playing Camille all the games, and they have no front line at all. So ADD has to be the front line, right? But they don't play with front line. So they play in a way that it should not work, but it works somehow. Like, for example, Jin Xiao, I always consider Jin Xiao to be a bad ADC. Obviously, he's staying in the league for something, but he has never shined in a saying. Like, for example, I remember his Jin always, but he hasn't played Jin in this season because he's not that good. So I will say that this team, the only star that they have, like the only really star, is Kuro. But Meteor has been playing really, really well. Like in early game, he has been playing really, really well. So I will say that this is a team that when I said that V5 can like mess with other teams and mess with the ladder, this team can mess with the ladder, but within themselves. Like they are a team that should be in playoffs, and I'm saying should, and maybe many people will disagree with that, but they have the potential to mess with them, like not go into playoffs and play poorly because they are predictable. Like ATT has to play frontline because no other guy is playing frontline. The only thing that I saw in terms of frontline was Emni played Leona. I have not seen many Leonas recently. So maybe that way they can have another frontline. But to be honest, I see a team that they are smart somehow. They have some structured plays, they have some flanks, they have cross-map plays, something that cross-map has been feeling ill lately in the LPL. You see some teams going ham in one position of the map and the other team doing nothing in the other position of the map. That sometimes steals me. But BLG is a team that can do that. So they are a team that in the worst position they can be, they will do something, like, right? They will not let the other team win. But they are not like so proactive to win games by themselves. Like they mostly win by some individual plays from, as I said earlier. Sorry, sometimes it resets. Yeah, it's my PC. And some individual plays from Kuro. But overall, I don't see them proactive enough as a team to win games, like, for example, two small teams. Like, they are not consistent. I will not trust them to win every single series against worse teams, for example. But I can trust them to win series against better teams because of these things. Like, they are structured, they have cross-map plays. Like, for example, Team W is a bad team, but if Team W plays their style, they can win. But at the same time, if you go, for example, FunPlus Phoenix, if FunPlus Phoenix plays their style, but they make a mistake, like, for example, in their way of playing Nashor, it's possible that BLG can punish that. And it's a team that has the tools to punish that. So I can trust on them somehow, but overall, they are not a top team. Like, I will place them 6th or 7th in the best case scenario, for example.
Okay. Yeah, so far they're 2-1. I thought that considering how they played, I thought that the fact they lost to OMG was more of an indictment to them in the way that they did it too around Ale. I think that for this squad, the first 3 weeks should have been their easiest one, going up against V5, OMG, and LGD. And the fact that they ended up losing that, their next few games, like JDG is their first one, Snake is their second one, and that could be an interesting one, and then it goes to SDG. So I think that this team, they really need to consistently win through topside map. Meteor, I expected. Just a fun fact for the Meteor point, like, it's basically just a registration error. The team organization messed up with his name. It's like he ended up just having Meteor, like, O before the E, just because.
Just LPL things.
Yeah, they can't change that now. It's like, guess what? Good luck at the end of the season. I was like, end of the season? Yeah. So
classic.
Yeah, I know, right? Meteor came into this team needing to be their early game because Kuro as a player, a lot of times is not going to match up to the early aggression that you have against most mid laners. And I think he's been able to do that, not as consistently as I would like for him to do it, but since he's a rookie, consistency is going to be an issue. ADD has been a surprising factor in how well he's playing, but once again, once the dust starts to settle, the issue with ADD is that his laning phase has been a pretty crucial weakness in the LCK, and it should be a crucial weakness in the LPL, where LPL is actually getting really stacked in top lane talent as of late. And the fact that Ale, or at least like how OMG was able to punish topside, I expect that to be the same case when they go up against Zoom, Flandre, and then not so much when it goes to Changhang, which is why I'm willing to give them that one versus SDG. But playoff team, I agree. Far further than that is where I start to get hesitant.
I think they will reach just the first round. And about Changhong that you mentioned, I'm really interested about why do you think that, because I saw Changhong. I never met him before. Like, don't watch many games in the LDL. He's like, for me, the same as Ale, maybe better than Ale. So I could see him smashing ADD in lane. Like, for example, he smashed Ray in one of the games against ADG, and he smashed Flandre, even though Flandre is not even close to what he used to be. So I can see Changhong smashing ADD in lane.
So my point is, I've said on broadcast that I think that Changhong is should be leader for Rookie of the Year, but my issue is that he's more of a system player rather than Ale that plays for the lane. So you're going to be seeing far more Scion, far more tank play. So I think that ADD will get out of laning phase just fine, and it's going to be the issue of team fighting, and I think that's where BLG actually matches up well enough versus SDG, where you can start to really see where the team fights come through.
Sure. I definitely agree with FrVonLettow's point that one of the things about this team is it doesn't really have the superstar players. That's part of the problem. As a team, it's decent, but there's so much talent in the LPL. It's going to be really hard to go deep in the playoffs without really good players. I mean, like you say, you look at the lineup. Okay, the big name is Kuro, but then even then, Kuro's style of play isn't hard carry mid laner. He's not going to take over the whole game. He's going to if you have a very good team around him, then he's going to do a good job. But he can't be the person just on his own who takes over. So then you look and you're right. The only other person is the AD carry, Jin Zhao. And this is a player that, he's not a new player. We've seen this guy for years and years. And if you go back in his career, even though he's an LPL AD carry, he's not like this. He's not like an Uzi protege in that sense. This is the guy who is going to play, think of Reckless. He's going to play Reckless champions. He's going to play the cleanup AD carry shit, Jin, Ashe, all the old stuff like that. Varus in the more modern day. Yeah, he plays sometimes something like Kalista or something, but it's not exactly very good on those champs. This is also not a super hard carry player. So the flaw with this team is it just doesn't have enough talent. It's an okay team. It's fun enough, like you said, FrVonLettow. It's kind of cool that they're decent, but it's hard to expect much from them.
Yeah. And one point about Jin Zhao, I will not say reckless. I am trying to thinking about some kind of analogy, but I will say a facilitator.
Maybe sneaky or someone.
A facilitator, yes, someone that plays a type of champion that uses ultimate to engage with other guys. This kind of Ashe is a good mention, but Jin, as I said, and there's a way they can play around with that.
Varus or whatever, yeah.
Meteor is a guy that can follow up engages really easily, and Kur is a guy that also does that really well. So they can do that, but it's predictable at the same time. So yeah, it's a team that it's interesting, but only interesting. Never win, never good enough.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff is going to be important for that one. So Coach Sim has been a big pickup for them. As long as they can get to the late game fairly consistently, and that their early game is structured around Meteor's early pathing, which has been good enough. The only outlier I think was specifically the Karthus game. But I think the team pretty much understands the meta well enough. So we'll see. I think it's a big we'll see, but 100% the issues are just mechanics. And Kuro is going to have to hard carry.
One thing you mentioned, and I want to say here, please, LPL teams, if you have an aggressive jungler like Hacker, Ning, don't play Karthus, because it doesn't make any sense. You want to scale with Karthus, and Ning, for example, when they lost against Jadon Gaming, so I always pronounce that name badly, but when they lost against them, it was one of the games was because of Karthus. That's it. Because Ning had any kind of idea what to do. So please, if you play Karthus, know what your jungler is actually. He can play Karthus because anyone can play Karthus, but he will play Karthus in the same way as playing Thag, for example, and that will make no sense. So that's a thing that I hated these weeks about the LPL. they don't know how to play Karthus, and if they know, it doesn't matter because the jungler will not play properly.
Yeah, the game's way too fast-paced. Way too fast-paced. Go on.
That's what I can't handle, is the irony that this is the world we've now come to, the LPL. This is why you can never have it all, Raz. That's the thing. You're always going to be one thing or the other. So I'll give you an analogy, right? I once had a really boring Korean girlfriend when I lived in Korea, where the good thing was, you know, she was very responsible. She had a job of her own, you know, she could like pay for things. She was a very sensible person, so she never acted crazy or anything. And, you know, as a person, I got along with her very well. It was really great. But as you might guess, it wasn't as fun though, you know. It's like he's lacking a little bit. He didn't want to go out to clubs. She's the sort of person who just wanted to stay in and watch television or something, you know, and go for a meal and just talk about a book she read or something, which, you know, that can be cool in its own right. So then what happened is when my relationship with her ended, I thought, right, obviously what you do is you just, when you've got one thing, you think of the thing you don't have. So at the time I was thinking, I want to have someone who's, you know, fun. So I met a girl who I was like in a nightclub, and I was like, dating her for a little bit, and I was going clubbing with her, having drinks. And the thing is, that was awesome because it was exactly what I wasn't getting, right? But then the problem is, when I tried to transition that to like the other parts of life, like for example, you know, staying at home, just chilling out, etc., then she just didn't work in that setting. So it's like you can't have both at the same time. So in the same way as for like literally 3 or 4 years, people used to be so disrespectful to all the LPL junglers and be like, they don't even understand what jungling is. Like, they're just invisible. Like, obviously, Clearlove was the one who got the most criticism, you know. He's just off farming and he's never fucking coming and helping. Well, now the LPL is full of junglers who just dive all the time. Like, they love to go ham. So the irony that you'd have someone like Ning, who's obviously one of the best at setting up ganks, and he's playing Karthus, but then trying to gank all the time. It's like, no, this is the wrong way around. The LPL, you had it figured out like 4 years ago. If you had Clearlove, classic Clearlove would love fucking Karthus. He doesn't even have to come to the lane to gank. He just presses R. It would be the perfect champ for him.
That's so funny right now. Sejuani, Nunu, Karthus.
It's his meta. Bring him back.
God, he's coming back. I swear to God, I promise you, he's coming
back. Bring him back, please.
In the Spanish league, there is some Evelyn play, so how we can summon up and he can play to a Spanish team somehow.
That's true.
Okay. Right, FrVonLettow, another team this season that people are very excited for, with good reason, is obviously Top Sports.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think of this team?
It's like the team you want to see because, okay, I have no time, no worries, 10-20 minutes games, that's it. But if you want to, like, in a way, understand them, it's the worst team because you never understand anything. Like, okay, you understand that they are really good, like Knight is so good. XX has improved a lot this season. And I think they have like a really good. Loken is that I have like a hate-love relation with Loken, but actually he's really good in a sense. So yes, you will improve. It's fun. Like watching top is fun, but what's the point? Like if you know how they are going to play, they are really good. You only play for the the highlights. So just watch highlights. But to be honest, I will say that top is the highest ceiling team in the LPL right now. Like Sunning Gaming, they have the talent right now that they have. You know they can improve, and they are going to be good. But you don't know where top can reach. Like, you know they have so many good players in lanes that you don't know if they are going to be so insane or just actually okay. They will improve, but that's it. Like middle.
You think their ceiling is above IG's?
That's a hard question. I could say in some positions, yes. For example, Rookie has been playing really strange recently. I remembered one play, I even posted it because I reviewed the games this weekend, when he used the LeBlanc W to bait the Kled R. Kled R came to Rookie, and then he came back after enemy Kai'Sa used R to came to him, so he baited 2 ultimate. That was so clean, but it's the only play I can remember from Rookie this season. So maybe if Rookie, for example, I don't think that's going to be the case this season for sure. But if with time Rookie like slumps in a way, like he tries, time passes, people get worse. Maybe they can have better teams because the other position I could think of, top for sure not because the Shy is in another world, even when he's greedy. But yes, in jungle, in XX has like improved a lot, and I have some faith of him. And Loken, not for sure. Loken, no, because Loken is more experienced than Jackie Love in a sense, and Loken, I don't expect him to improve so much. And overall, as I said, like if Rookie, like in a sense, goes worse with time, that can happen. But at the same time, I'm just making assumptions.
Sure.
That can happen, but right now, for sure not. Like there's so many assumptions you have to take to say something like this.
Like not even a single role at this moment. Like not even a single role for me. Like I don't think that TOP like TOP might be like, I think that they followed the letter for IG of having young, strong talent, like everything. They've hit every metric, but in a worse way for IG. I think that like the only one I would say that is getting closer and closer is XX, because he's been the most improved jungler from last year, and this year he's actually had a really strong showing. But I think that there is a world where XX comes in as the strongest jungler in the LPL, but that just needs consistency behind that, because Ning has had consistency of 2 years. So I think TOP is damn good. They still need to figure out their basically how to play out Baron games up against the top teams. They haven't had that opportunity to do it other than IG. Like those Baron fights have been an issue, and playing around that, even in Demacia Cup, has been something that's really been a tough call, because they have such young talent. And I think Ben has probably been their best in terms of shot calling around that, but they really need to grind those in if they want to be the best team. Because I think right now that'd be IG Suning FPX at the moment, but that'd be a real fun matchup to see. But just those two teams, I'm really worried with it.
I want to point that out, that they have like really bad neutral of this control, like vision overall, like the way they plan it. For example, against FunPlus Phoenix, they are insanely bad in comparison. That's the key point. But for example, they have something that, strategical wise, that makes me think that they can improve in the long term, because they have that point, and it's resets. They are really good at resets. They are really good at, okay, want to do like this kind of move, they reset in the perfect moment, so the enemy team has no reaction, but only resets. Like lane assignment is also worse than any other teams. Like the way that they fight sometimes is really messy, but in terms of individual strength, they are insane. Like I will say that XX with time can be better than Ning, and I will say that maybe, as I said, Knight can be better than Rookie if Rookie like slams in a way, but right now for sure not.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, being as the next game they play is against Jingdong Gaming, what do you think of this matchup, Top versus JDG?
Let me think of it. I think that Jingdong Gaming has something that Top wants, and it's not in the players, like it's in the coaching staff. Like Homie is so good, and that's one of the main reasons that when I saw the victory against G. Same thing again, sorry. When I saw the victory against IG, I thought something Homie did, like Homie has some influence there. And when I see about the teams, I see so many inconsistencies in the jungle. Flawless has some good Kha'Zix plays. Like maybe Flawless is the only one that played Kha'Zix well in the LPL right now. But if you don't let Jagao play Zoe, and if Imp doesn't come to his old one, the only way that I see JD Gaming winning against Top is because Zoom has been a monster lately. Because Zoom has played 8 champions, like he has played Gunplank, Swain. Swain was so good. So maybe because of Zoom, they can try something, but they have so many inconsistencies that I don't see them winning against Top. They won against IG, as I said, maybe because of pre-planning the series and because IG is disrespecting everyone, they don't care. But the Carthus one, but against Top, if Top doesn't disrespect them, Knight is too good for Jagao, to be honest.
I think the last series that they've had was the most impressive one. I know that everyone will be talking about it because it's the one versus IG.
Yeah.
But out of 3 series in the first 3 weeks, just being able to draw conclusions of how they would fare in the next 2, I would say that they're improving drastically around their jungle spot. That in the first series, it was like, I didn't see any synergy around how their jungle was playing up. And then the second series was even worse because they get like their junglers got hard smashed in that one. Yeah. And in series 3, we got to see both Levi and Flawless play well. Even though the Levi series was a loss, I thought the game, he played well individually and was always playing to what was the most optimal part of the map. So I thought that in a series, or at least a team that's growing that quickly, maybe they'll have some rust coming out of Chinese New Year's, because a lot of these teams will obviously, they won't practice throughout it. It's a pretty big holiday. I would expect them to have their hardest point when they play up against BLG. That's where the rust comes in. But at least they have that series in the meantime that they can then go up against TOP and be ready for it. I think JDG are favorites for me in that series because I've always been high on how JDD are coming in last year, and they just needed time. And it seems like they're coming in much faster, and that's the assumption I'm starting to draw just based off of how they've been playing in the last 3 series.
For me, if for Western people, I will compare JDog gaming. I did the same last Team Vitality in a sense because they love like clown fiestas. It's a like an atmosphere they are comfortable, but at the same time they have their way of playing the game, and they have the same issues. Like they changed the jungling, and they had the same like way of changing. Like Mowgli, in a sense, is playing different and has to adapt to the team, and Flawless and Levi have to adapt to the other players in a sense. And Levi, to be honest, when you said that he played well the second match that he played, I don't remember exactly the champion, but I wrote down that it was not so good. Maybe I was wrong, but it was only.
Olaf play was the one where what I thought was the best,
But it was only 2 matches, you know. You cannot judge easily for 2 matches. So, from what I remember, the only good jungling experience that I felt with this team was Flawless playing Kha'Zix. So if I see, for example, that you said Top Gaming and Top Sports, and BLG, Top maybe, even though XX is improving, but exactly BLG, the way they play is with this Camille pressuring in the early game. So if they don't let Camille and the Meteor doesn't pressure, they should win, yes. But if Meteor adapts to the series and can play good, maybe they have a really, really weak point there, sorry, because Meteor has been really good in early, and I don't see consistency in Jaedong. So shouldn't
Jingdong be a team that has a high ceiling when you consider some of the players they have?
And depends on your your idea of Zoom, because Flawless at this point, after seeing that many years, when he used to be a one-trick pony Lee, in a way, not one-trick pony, but close to it. And Jagao is only really, really good with Zoe. And Imp has been playing better than the last 3 horrible years in a sense, but not enough to compete to the top tier ADCs. If you consider that Zoom is not like that top tier player for the league, then yes, because Flawless can improve, Jagao can improve, Zoom can improve. But I actually consider Zoom to be better than most of the people. I actually consider Zoom to be maybe top 3 even in the league, even though it's a stacked league in top lane. So from my point of view, saying that Zoom is so good, I don't think so, because I don't trust Flawless and Jagao enough, only those 2 to improve enough. I couldn't trust Zoom, but as I said, I already trusted him for a long time.
I'm pretty damn high on you. Yagao for me is I would say top 4 mid laner. Just based off not just his Zoe play, I think it's Galio, his Yasuo. We haven't seen that much. I think his pool is strong enough, and I think the major issue he's currently having is basically synergizing with anyone that's not named Clid. So we're starting to see a lot more from the 2 junglers that he's been working with based off last series. But you're right, Zoom has just been phenomenal regardless. Yeah. So how Zoom is performing on the map is pretty damn key. But I think Yagao, Zoom, a little bit of Lumao, but his laning phase has been difficult because I don't think he's been working well with Imp as of late, and so Bavoy coming in is pretty really needed. But going up against BLG, he doesn't have. The bottom lane doesn't have to play well in that one, and I think that the only real question is when they go up against TOP, that it would be more so top side of the map being what I would expect. So I think JD has a high ceiling. I think they have a very high ceiling based off what we saw them last year, and not changing the core players, where they have Lumao, Zoom, Yagao, Coach Ohm, as you've already made a reference to. So strategically, this team is already locked down, and they should have the mechanics to follow up.
Okay, you said that Jagao should be top 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so Maple, Xiaohu, Rookie, Knight, Kuro. Who is worse than him here?
So my top 4, just to get it out there, I think Maple, it's so I actually think number 1 is Rookie.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Knight.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Scout, and then number 4 is
Scout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you consider him to be better than Xiaohu?
Shahu as of now, yes. I think Shahu during playoff time changes that quite a bit.
Okay.
But early on in the season, he tends to just like either he plays so many roles. Last year, he played through bottom lane, mid lane, or he just tries to play a supportive style when Uzi comes in that he may not look the best. And on top of that, it's not even so much that he changes his role that he looks worse. It's more so like him trying to adapt to that role oftentimes. You can see it wears at him. So when he has time to actually settle in and play the role out throughout the season, I think he is a very strong player. But I just think that Yagao as an individual, and then as on top of that, he comes in as a leader as well in how they play out team fights. I think that he does end up playing team fights so well, so consistently throughout the year that I ended up putting him up there. I was actually, there are so many strong mid laners in the LPL, so that was probably the toughest tier list. Even putting in Scout, I think is like, that one's a tough one as well. But just based off of how I think consistency matters to me, where I would put him in.
Okay.
Right, FrVonLettow, one of the teams that I alluded to earlier, because they made it to Worlds, people will think EDG's a decent team. And in fact, at Worlds, they kind of overperformed, you know. I mean, they managed to literally get a win off KT. They actually played pretty well against Fnatic. Right, if you see them in LPL this split, they're clearly not a very good team. And if you look at their current schedule, they next up are playing RNG, who should be the real RNG now, and then Sunning. So potentially this could be the time where they can lose those games. They'll be in a bad spot in the league. Do you actually think EDG is a team with potential? Are they a good team?
No. Like, the thing about EDG is that I also consider them not to be so, like, afterwards and in the period between wars, most people thought, okay, this is an early game team, and they even said that in summer, like not in summer, but afterwards, they said that in summer, like LPL summer, they were an early game team. And I remember so many games going late and after 30 minutes, and I haven't seen like many movements from EDG in early. So I am in the contrary, like in the opposite direction from many people talking about the LPL, about early gaming. But at the same time, this season, like, talking about this season, I saw a comp from EDG that was Urgot, Camille, Syndra, Vladimir, and Lissandra. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, you can have iBoy.
That doesn't even sound like you've got the right champions to make a comp.
You're playing Hope. That game was played by Hope. That's interesting because
I remember that one.
You have like
got smashed in lane, by the way.
Yeah, Haru is improving. Okay, no, not improving, but Haru is a good jungler, but. Okay, he's playing a Camille against Urgot. Okay, with Urgot, sorry. Ray has been known for like having to babysit him. Like, he's not bad, but he needs, like, he overstands so many times. Like in lane, outside of lane. He's been, as I said, Changhong won against him, for example, in one in the series against SDG. So they don't know what to do. Like, I remember the tweet from LS that said about Fnatic. I'm not that drastic about ADG, because they have won so many games, but I feel the same way. Like, they have no identity, they don't know what to do, and they have good players. Like, I'm pissed off because you have a really good top, like, can play aggressive. Yes, you have to like calm him, but he's good. You have a Haro that has improved so much. Finally, we don't need Clearlo for anything. You have a Scout, so good, so consistent. The only one that from these carries that you can rely on. You have iBoy, who has been like really, really strange recently, like making some, like when he plays Kai'Sa, for example, he goes randomly in teamfights, and then you have Waco, who has to like calm everything up, but he can't because you have too many weird players. So I see a mess, like a complete mess. I don't see an identity, I don't see a way of playing. The only good thing I can say about them is that they are so good at late team fighting. Like when they reach some kind of minutes, when they reach around Baron, they can win games. Those games that no one proposed anything and you reach to the neutral objective fighting for vision, that's a good moment to shine, because EDG can win. Not by brute force, they know how to play the team fight, but because they have some experience, like they have been playing for a long time. But so many games I don't see a plan. And when I see a plan, it's only 15 minutes into the game. And it's like, okay, we did something in 15 minutes. What to do next? Like, I have no idea. So to be honest, I don't trust EDG. I have the same feeling with the, Team WE. So going those together, like in the last series, it was interesting because I expected nothing, and I encountered a 50 minutes game or something like that. So, to be honest, I can even see that they don't reach playoffs, even though their talent is insane in a way. Like, I can see many teams, like Victory 5, for example, like at least they have an idea, you know? So, I don't trust EDG at all. But they have good players.
EDG's that type of team for me that, like, they have the quickest path to being a top 5 team or a playoff team. And it's literally, as you said, just really having an identity and literally going back to what was successful for them during the gauntlet and just recognizing that Ray is weak side of the map. That's not that he's a weak player, but like you have to play the same way Sword is playing for Griffin. You have to be a strong enough player to recognize that you're not just going to be playing through carries or playing through top lane. That's literally the decision that our EDG made last year because they were playing poorly for such a good half of that split in summer, and then they're like, okay, they got smashed in a playoff time too, and they come to the Gauntlet series, and it's like, okay, consistently Ray is weak side, and we're team fighting and we're playing through mid and bottom lane. That was the way that EDG had played holistically, and it feels like this beginning of this season, they have definitely walked that back, where Ray's kind of like the half of these games he's playing strong side of the map, and it's not strong enough because the bottom side of the map is just like basically hard inting, specifically iBoy, and the other half he's playing weak side, but he is acting like he's playing strong side and essentially pushing out far more in vision that he doesn't have access to and just getting caught out. So I think Ray has been performing poorly, and then the strategy around that has not been very ironclad, and that's some disappointing for me because Hart coming in as a coach for the team, I'd expected him to at least lay out easy to utilize compositions and specifically continue on with what they learned in gauntlet time coming into playoffs, and I think that's been an issue here.
If I were EDG for next summer, I will sign like Zoom, Shawal, any of these guys, any of them.
Yeah.
That would be the most obvious pickup. It's either like the obvious thing with this team is like, I agree, they're one piece away from being really good, and that piece either has to be top lane, like you say, or you go and you do want a better AD carry. Like if you had SMLZ on this team, obviously it'd be amazing, but unfortunately, like I actually feel like the really dangerous thing for me is you know what, I actually really hope EDG fails this split, and the reason why is exactly for this reason. It's like I think the worst thing that could happen to them is that they make both the playoffs of the splits, and you know they like think that they did well, like, oh, you know, we had a close game before we lost, like, oh, we'll be in the gauntlet anyway, because then they might keep the same lineup. Like you actually want them at the moment, they're in like, they're just good enough to not make a change potentially, but they need to make a change.
It's hard. It's always difficult. I don't fault them for not making a change. What I fault them for doing is essentially when they made a change to the coaching staff, they had lost all of the lessons that they've had in the previous split. That suddenly, like, they recognized that they were good players and that they were like, they could be all top players in the league. And I think Scout's still performing well. I think iBoy and Mako in their game to game, they can play well or whatever. They get shipped out for Hope. But I think that they can all come in locked in, it's performing excellently. They just need to have a great strategy and to come in out. They need to come out essentially being disciplined. I think discipline is a major issue that they're currently facing.
And don't pick Lissandra support if you don't know how to play it. Yeah.
All right, Flame, what's going on?
The only thing is though, like, I wanna know what you think on this, because obviously, like, in theory, the jungle meta is supposed to be changing soon. So is it not going to hurt Harrow if we go to a world where it's like, I mean, I know nowadays there's not that many actual real tank junglers, but like tank junglers in air quotes, you know, is it not going to hurt his game?
I don't know if it was Harrow, but for sure Kindred has been played in the LPL, and Kindred fit with some of the ADC changes. So, and it fits with the style that Harrow has been played. So I don't think that Harrow is influenced here. But at the same time, I feel like iBoy is influenced positively about these changes, because maybe a meta where you can protect the ADC is good for EDG, and that's definitely not something many teams can say in the LPL. Like, not all teams, most of them have a good ADC, but not that kind of ADC that like iBoy. Like iBoy is really strange in a way. I will never change iBoy in this team, not because he is like he's playing good in the Rift, but because like the way that Mako plays right now is like babysitting in a way, Boy wherever he goes. In only if he has Rakan. I have seen many good engages with. So I will not break that synergy. But if meta changes, about the Harrow question that you asked, I will never say that it will influence badly EDG. Actually, I think the meta that is going to change could favor EDG. And if they introduce Frostmancy in the LPL, like playing with the support item, then it's perfect, because it doesn't matter if he doesn't farm. Like, Ray can just hit the enemy top laner.
That's true. That's true. I think that Haru should be fine, and I think that if like, because of the current pool, he can play Olaf really well, and you can still play Kindred to a certain degree, not just through the AD carry changes in 9.3 and 9.4, but also just because, like, you can technically still play a starvation style. Like, you can go into the enemy jungle and start to starve him out, and it would still be a fine way to play it, but you'd have to play through jungle. And they've had games in the past, last year, what they would just play through his Kindred, and I thought it was incredibly successful. And worst case, maybe just bring out Clearlaw. I'm just putting that out there, just like embedding that in their mind. If you ever have a discussion, just throw a Sejuani in there. I think it should work out for the team.
Are you implying with these words that it's above to SOFM too? Because SOFM has been so bad, but the only thing that can happen to him is that, like, make him play Kindred and invade the jungle all the time.
Yeah, play Kindred. Kindred is the key to all of their problems. Just putting it out there.
Right, okay, let's talk then about the team that obviously the current. I mean, they're not the champions of the LPL, but they're the kings of the LPL, which has to be IG. Obviously, the reigning world champions. What do you think of this team in 2019, FrVonLettow? Like, do they look different than the team that won Worlds?
The way I've explained every single time to people, not deep, some kind of basic knowledge of League of Legends, is that they play like a Chinese Turk. If you haven't played any MMOs, they just have so many. Instead of numbers, they have talent. So they put the talent in front of the enemy team in their base. And if they fail, it doesn't matter, because they are in their base. Like, the enemy team has to come to their base and take turrets and take everything, so they don't have time, because they don't have time to move physically the characters. So what happened with IG this season is that this is exponential in a sense. Like, they have been doing so many moves in the enemy base, like not exactly physically the enemy base, but the enemy territory, that doesn't make any sense at all. But they have the talent, so sometimes they recover. And if they don't recover, it doesn't matter, because the enemy team cannot punish it. So you have Deshai killing everyone, and at the same time being killed sometimes. You have Ning crazy engages all the time, like with Zac, with Kane, like with Sejuani. Like, you have that greedy bastard game with Karthus that I hate a lot. And then you have Rookie playing a bit worse. So it's the same team, same identity. No one is punishing so much it. I think Jadon didn't punish it in a sense, like Invictus Gaming punished themselves. But in the long run, I see problems here, because if meta changes, like if they cannot play around smashing people in lane, if they cannot play around constantly engaging in enemy territory, maybe something happens with this team. Like, I have my doubts about the future, because right now they are so good. They should be good for playoffs. They have the synergy. They have insane talent. But if they don't adapt in the long run, I see teams like Sunning Gaming or Top improving more than them.
I think you're right in the sense that at the moment, I would say Griffin is #1 in the world. And then the way that Invictus Gaming are playing, I would put them as the #2, simply because it seems like they're just going through the motions. When they went up against TOP, that was a really clean series. But then from that point forward, OMG, Rogue Warriors, Snake, these are the teams that they've been facing these are not good teams. These are below 500 teams that they've been playing. And these teams that they just can cleanly take down in ways that, like, you watch in detail, and it's like just very much. I think the interviews that they had after the games really are spot on, and that it's more so just like challenging the enemy team to fight, saying that we're better than them mechanically and that we should win these fights, even if it's not as planned out as you would expect. And then they got punished for that when they went up against JD, simply through laning phase. I think Zoom had a very strong 2v2 topside when they were like showing out Duke and all that. I expect IG to ramp up when it comes to real stressful situations near playoff time, in playoff times. But I think right now that there is so little challenge from the bottom half of the league, and the strength of schedule is not really pushing them, that they're just going through the motions of their mid jungle, like styling. And their top lane, they're just not even showing the Shy most of the time. Duke's been coming in so often. Now,
Yeah.
Duke's thankfully Shy is playing more games, and I think that should be the case if they want to at least have that proper form. Like some of the teams really are, like FPX and Sitting. But at the moment, this team has they're getting a solid, a B+ from me based off of what we saw them as world champions.
One notice that is like one key point that it's interesting for me is that in this season, like if you count only regular season and even playoffs of the LPL from last year, the only team they lost was RNG. Like they not lost to any other team. Like this season, they have lost to 2 different teams. One in the Base Cup that was top, and one in J-Dongen. So I fear that people will try, like with time, more teams will adapt and more teams will know how to win against them. And that's something that maybe not in spring, maybe they can reach their goal to finally win a title. But in summer, if meta changes a lot and these teams adapt, I see them not being even a contender to a team. To the title, sorry. I know this is harsh words, but they are being so predictable. They are so good and they can win with that, but they are predictable in a sense. And in League of Legends history, a team that has been predictable, in the long run, they never work.
The thing is, though, go on.
Okay. Because I wanted to say that I think that was inevitable regardless. Like, IG only losing to RNG, to me, was only simply because this team just came out for 1 year. They were so strong specifically in, like, individual talent that obviously going into the next year, like, TOP got players that were, like, as a response to what IG had, I felt. Like, IG were world champions based off of individual talent in solo lanes. And then, of course, the duo lanes were very confident as well. That TOP was like, all right, well, we're just going to get the best players that we can, mechanically speaking. Even 369 coming in from KOF, their LDL team, they brought him in simply because, like, night and day from system players like Lies and Moyu, they're like, okay, we're bringing in the most talented player that we can coach and build up and be like someone that can play for the team later on. But we're just talking about first 15 minutes. So the fact that they took down IG early on in Demacia Cup, although I may not rate Demacia Cup as highly, I agree that was something that, but I agree the way they did it is very telling. And I think that IG, like, in playoff times, if they ever face a TOP again, that's going to be a tough series. But I still think IG is going to go to the finals. And I still think that they're going to struggle a little bit because, like, top 5 teams are really good. And I think that JD are getting better and better. So I'm pretty high. I think that competition amongst the top 6 are pretty sick in the LPL. And even a world champion like IG is going to struggle when they're at their best, is my point.
Sorry?
What you're saying, though, is actually why, like, the LPL at the moment has been a bit of a tease because there's all these good teams that exist already, IG, RNG. You've got all these good teams that now have emerged, like Sunning. Obviously, Jingdong's pretty good. FunPlus has been a shock to everyone. So you'd hope, right, that we'd have a sense already of who the best is. But the problem is, like you say, because IG won Worlds, they're just doing whatever they want at the moment, and they don't really seem like they've changed up what they're going to do until they get tested. RNG hasn't really played for real because until Uzi's in the lineup, it doesn't feel like the real RNG, you know. So we haven't actually really had a proper test yet. We don't really know if these new teams can be the best.
About RNG, it's really hard to say anything point because, you know, it's not only that. I think this is like when I saw that tweet, he was also casting LCK, UCI with the Chinese casting crew. Yeah. I think, okay, this is pre-planned. Like, they sent UCI to watch closely how Griffin plays. So if they met in the MSI, they know how to win against Griffin. But you know, that's the only conclusion I can reach about this team because, you know, with Wink, they haven't played good in a sense. Like, they have been competitive, but that's it. And Wink, what can I say about Wink if he's not going to play more than this 2 series? So the only thing I can make a conclusion about RNG that could, like, be important, it's important for the next weeks, is that Karsa has a step ahead a bit. Like, Karsa has been more key to RNG these weeks, but maybe that's not what the meta will say. Like, maybe Chiahu has to step up a bit more. I don't know, because as I said, it's only 2 series, and it was like Messi series. They won 1, they lost 1. It was Sunning Gaming or what?
I think so.
Yeah,
yes.
They lost to Sunning.
Sunning Gaming. So Sunning Gaming is also a good team. You cannot say, okay, they lost against a bad team. So I don't know. To be honest, The only thing I can say about RNG is that maybe Karsa has more like leadership attributes values now. But to be honest, I am not obviously inside of it, so I don't know.
Sure. Right, what about this then? We'll do one more team, because we're not going to do every team. There's 16 teams in the LPL, people. Like, there's no time in the world to do that. And let's be real, there's certain teams just don't deserve to be talked about. Like, until they can do something good inside the game League of Legends, they don't get talked about. So what we'll do is this, FrVonLettow. You can pick the last team we talk about. So pick a team we haven't discussed yet. There's still quite a few out there. So who's interesting to you?
That's a good question. I will say Sino Dragon.
There we go. Okay. So a team that, we talked about them in another episode because they started off the season strong, obviously. Didn't have that strong a schedule, sure. So what do you think is interesting about this team? Because this is a team where, for Westerners, no one's going to recognize the names, obviously, because they kind of unknowns.
Well, I already said that Changhong impressed me because he had smashing lanes against good top laners. We already know that they are they have their synergy there because they've been working for a long time and they know how to play. But what impressed me from a wrong side point of view is that their macro is so strange. Like, I have seen them sending Gala to a side lane with Kai'Sa and getting picked and no one sharing the cross map. Like, do they have the my question is, and that's why interesting to, because they have the synergy, they have the team play, they have some talent. Do they have the tools to improve macro wise? Because I have not seen like a way of, they know how to play team fights, they know how to properly execute them, but I have not seen them like proactive movements that make sense in macro play. Like, as I said, lane assignment, wave management, like, can they improve in that? So if they can improve, I can even put them in playoffs, honestly, because as I said, like, there are some bottom teams that are so inconsistent, like bottom teams in playoffs, that PLG, for example, they can surprise them. But if they don't improve in macro, I'm not like into that trend. So I want to ask Raz specifically because I know he watched the LDL more than me. So do you think, from your experience in the LDL, that they were smashing everyone, that they can improve in macro? It's not that they just smashed because of how good they were as a team.
They smashed a lot just because of their the talent in their regular season was actually pretty poor. So like they were a team that was not only strong individually based off of like their top side of the map. So Xiaopeng was a very strong jungler. So like that one, I'm surprised that he's playing Lee Sin so often, because I would expect more like Nidalee and Kindred play. I know we've been talking about Kindred quite a bit, but he's a strong Kindred player that I really respected. 1 second,
I think they banned them some Nidalee games for sure. So maybe that's why he didn't play a lot.
He played some Nidalee games, and they weren't like, essentially, it's not as much of a smash as it was, because like when he's playing Nidalee back then, there's not a lot of rotation and adjacent lanes to stop him from like invading. In the LPL, that just happens a lot. So like, so I think that Changhong, Xiaopeng, and Twyla have to play a lot more on point individually, because what we're seeing right now is that they're putting so much emphasis on Gala that if Gala doesn't get ahead, a lot of their compositions are really low damage because of the Lee Sin play in particular. That they will lose in team fights, and on top of that, macro play. Their macro is set up for neutral objectives like Dragons and Barons, and get that out there, and then they will lose on that one. So they are not a team that's known for side laning. Like, side laning is not a thing. They just 5v5. If it's Cassio, Sion, if it's like Akali or Lulu, like they will always group to a part of the map rather than trying to go for side lane. So I agree with you on this, and the fact that like cross map plays are not something they're comfortable or really tested in making in the LDL.
I will say that the best solution for them is just to, like, buy a spot in the NALCS. That's the best solution.
That works, man. Get the ticket. You know what? Shift them in. Hopefully find that one extra expansion team so it doesn't fuck up their schedule. That's what I'm talking about.
LMQ, back again.
Let's go.
Right, what about this one, FrVonLettow, as a last question? If you had to pick someone right now, who should be the MVP? Obviously, we've only played a few games. Who would be the MVP of the LPL at the moment for you?
A team or a player, are you saying?
A player.
A player. Okay, that's a good question. I will surprise, I think, with this answer because Doinby should be there, like in contention with it. But I was surprised with the answer because I think he's in a way, the player that I didn't expect that much. He overran most of the games that Sunning won. So I will say Hacker. It's really strange, I know, but like the way of jungling right now that many jungler in the LPL do is like really aggressive, ganking all the time. And Hacker is good at that, but he is also good in the opposite side, and that's not too normal in many junglers in the LPL. So from this, I know they like many people will not agree with it, but because MVP is a really, really, really strong point. But right now, I will say him, yes, because you cannot say anyone from IG like Rookie. He's not the star he used to be this start of the season. The same for the Shad. He has fun. Duke has been playing really, really well, but you cannot say it also because he hasn't played every single game. And from the other teams, from FunPlus, it will be between Doinby and him because they are for me, the best performing players in the best performing teams so far.
I would say 2 players. Funny how because he said no IG members. I was thinking Ning. I think Ning is probably the best bet from IG just based off of his gameplay. He does get a lot of freedom based off of his lanes, and also his last game was not as strong when he was on the Camille play. So that's why I would go to Doinby. I think Doinby is the easiest answer for a reason. So I'd go for Doinby because of how strong he is individually and how he's changed his team. So that's my call for the reason that you've already mentioned.
Sure. Well, the good thing about Doinby as well is obviously not only individually can you see that he has a big effect, but the narrative of the fact that he's taken a team that nobody expected to be good in the top of the league, you know, it all ties together. That's a pretty good pick, I think. Yeah.